Hi, I'm Kevin Kneupper. I'm an attorney at Kneupper and Covey, and I want to talk to y'all today about an indictment that just came down for Tom Girardi. If you don't know who Tom Girardi is, I'll give you a little bit of background on sort of what this case is, which is one of the big uh, scenes of drama, I guess, not only in one of the Real Housewives shows, but in the California legal community because of what Girardi is alleged to have done and what he's just been indicted for. You can see up behind me in that direction is Tom Girardi. He's this lawyer in California who, for many years, was kind of the king of the plaintiff's bar. He was getting lots of very big verdicts. He was involved in the Erin Brockovich case. If you ever saw that movie with Julia Roberts, he was one of the lawyers who was involved with her a little bit. And then you can see on the other side, that side, Erika Jayne, who is one of the Real Housewives. They all seem to get into legal drama one way or other, or get in on the Real Housewives because of their legal drama. She's one of the most dramatic of those because while Tom Girardi is alleged to have stolen funds from his clients, she is alleged to have spent those funds. And there are a lot of allegations going on in various lawsuits about how that came to be, about money that was supposedly being expensed as costs to the lawsuits. There's one in particular where there was several $100,000 worth of jewelry that was supposedly made an expense in a lawsuit by Tom Girardi, which obviously, if that happened, that is very, very improper. And there's a lot of things about this case that are Mr. Girardi's case that are extremely improper, and I'm going to walk through some of those with you today, specifically with regards to one of two indictments that just came down. He's actually been indicted in two different places. One is in California, which is where his law firm was, where he did a lot of this stuff. But then one of the major cases that he's alleged to have stolen client funds in is in a big airplane crash case that happened in Chicago. And we can't see right now the California indictment because that is what's called under seal. So just for sort of legal background on what all this stuff is, in a criminal case, you start the case with something called an indictment. The basic process is that you have so you've heard of a jury, probably. Juries you see on TV. You've got the 12 people at the end of the case. They decide guilty, not guilty. Before any of that happens, before you even get to that stage, you have what's called a grand jury, and a grand jury is kind of like a jury, but they aren't deciding guilty or not guilty. They're deciding, is there enough evidence to go forward with a criminal case against somebody? And a lot of times they call them kind of a grand jury because they're not just doing one case. They may sit for a few months. They may not be doing it full time. They kind of go through these different cases and look at the evidence and say, hey, kind of in secret before someone's name gets tossed out there, like what's happening now, is there actually enough for the federal prosecutor to go indict this person? The defense is usually not there. It's just the federal prosecutor or state prosecutor, it could be. That makes it a lot easier on the prosecutor to kind of meet their burden when there's only one side. But that is intended as sort of a threshold thing to protect people from prosecutors just sort of going on without any checks on them. So once that has happened, the prosecutors go do what's called an indictment. And that is a document that is filed in a court, in this case in two different federal courts. The indictment lays out what the person is alleged to have done, what are the facts that support, that the prosecutor is saying are the facts that support a criminal conviction. You don't have to put in everything, but you have to put in kind of enough to give the person fair notice of what's going to happen to them. So I've got the indictment for the case in Illinois because that one is public, and I'm going to walk through some of the things that are said there. If you're interested in this kind of content in, legal drama or legal celebrity lawsuits, or really just lawsuits I find interesting, I'm going to be doing videos about those and about sort of the actual kind of legal details of how they work and what you can learn from seeing some of these documents filed in court. So you can hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more of this, and then I'm going to go on and show you what the indictment looks like. All right, now what I'm showing you right now is the indictment that just came down in Illinois. And one of the sort of background things to know, I guess, is that Tom Girardi is now saying that he has dementia. So he's 83 years old. A lot of the stuff that was happening has been going on for decades and decades. Suddenly, now that he is about to go to jail, he's saying he has dementia. He's been put into a conservatorship by his brother. That's a whole separate part of the drama. Whether this indictment ultimately goes forward, given those claims, I don't know. One of the things that another sort of celebrity case that just happened was Ron Jeremy, the porn actor from many years ago, who was accused of sexually assaulting various women. He has basically just been committed to a mental institution. in the middle of an indictment or a criminal case on the grounds that he is incompetent to stand trial. So I kind of suspect that's the same path that Girardi's going to try to go down. Is he incompetent or not? I don't know. But that's certainly one way that he may try to avoid having a day in court for the people who had this stuff happen to them, allegedly. So here is the indictment. You can see this is just a document. It's something that is it's a legal document. It's got this kind of special formatting that is what documents in lawsuits or criminal actions look like. It says that there are special October 2022 grand jury charges, so that means that this is something that's been happening for a few months. They start out by listing the facts that they're alleging, and you can see some of what's alleged here. There are a few players that they have listed here. There's Thomas Girardi, that's Girardi. It says he's a lawyer who owned and operated a law firm called Girardi Keese, and so when you see GK in here, that's this law firm Girardi Keese. They were the ones that he was it was just his law firm. There are several other lawyers here who have become involved in legal dramas of their own, because what happened whenever Girardi stuff started coming out is that prosecutors started digging into everything that was going on at this law firm, and his sort of stuff going on was not the only thing going on. One of the people here is kind of a key part of that. The second one is David Lira, who this says is another lawyer at Girardi Keese, and then the other one who's in his own serious issues is Christopher Kamen. That would be a whole separate video to talk about that guy. But he basically, it says he was the head of accounting and finance, and then there are a lot of issues with what was going on with the accounting of the firm, and that may have been part of, or maybe even totally unrelated to, but going on at the same time as this kind of client theft issue, which is what this indictment is about. You can see the next one that says GK Lawyer A. So what they do in these indictments, it's not clear whether that person is being accused of doing anything or not. They'll just make anonymous names of people or who are involved who aren't really part of the crime. Sometimes they do what's called an unindicted co-conspirator, and they will anonymize those people as well. An unindicted co-conspirator means somebody who was part of the crimes, but they're not being indicted usually because they cooperated with the prosecutors. So who this person is, it doesn't really sort of say whether that's the case. It goes down here and it says Lender A is a litigation financing firm. What is that? It says that GK and Girardi, so Girardi Keese, the firm, and Girardi himself owed this lender approximately $8 million for amounts that the lender had loaned to the law firm, but that Girardi had personally guaranteed. So unpacking all of that, how some lawyers on the plaintiff's side, so I run a plaintiff's side consumer law firm, and we've talked to some of these people, haven't actually done financing through them, but you get calls from them all the time, and a lot of plaintiff lawyers do this, is that there's this whole industry that's sprung up called litigation financing. So if you don't have the money to bring a lawsuit, because on the plaintiff side, you don't know if you're going to win. You don't know, are you going to collect anything or not? There are a lot of sort of investment funds that want a piece of the lawsuit if they think it's good. And sometimes it's just for a piece of your firm's lawsuits. They can do what's called a portfolio loan, where you pay it back just from whatever you happen to win out of your cases. You got to start paying some percentage back to that litigation financing company. So they were using litigation financing. I think that it looked like from reading the rest of this that they may have owed amounts that were sort of sucking up all their winnings, which can create a financial problem for a law firm. And the other thing that sort of drove a lot of this coming out, I think, is that in COVID, in California in particular, a lot of the courts were basically shut down all the lawsuits for a long, long period of time. And so the plaintiffs' lawyers who were doing these personal injury type, like the car accident guys you'd see on TV, got into really serious financial problems because, in a lot of cases, because the money just stops, but they still have their employees. Their cases are just kind of in limbo, and they can't get money in, and then now all their sort of business is just in a big problem. Girardi's stuff goes way back further than that, though. The accusations against him are at least 20, 30 years of taking money that he shouldn't have. And you can see this next paragraph it really gets at the heart of what has gone on in this indictment and in the other allegations. You can see this is talking about something called an IOLTA trust account. So any lawyer or law firm who's taking money on behalf of a client has to have what's called a trust account. IOLTA just means it's a account that earns interest, interest-only lawyer trust account. The point of this trust account is to separate out the funds that are owed to the client from what is owed to the lawyer. So you're not supposed to ever use this to pay like stuff for your firm. You can't use this to pay the firm's, you know, employees. You can't use it to pay any expenses of the firm directly. What you are supposed to do is, so for a plaintiff's case, let's say it was a car crash, the lawyer might get a third. The client gets 2/3 of whatever the settlement is. What you are supposed to do is, if you put the settlement into this trust account, you're supposed to take out the lawyer amount to the law firm's account as soon as you have earned it, as soon as you have sort of a legal right to get it out of there, you get it out of there. The reason they call it a trust account is because you're holding it in a position of trust. That money that is in that account is supposed to be kept for the client's benefit. It is one of the most serious things you can do to go start messing around with this money, especially and start spending it on yourself. is kind of an insane, should not be a lawyer anymore kind of thing if you're taking this and buying jewelry or something like that. So this says that Girardi and this other attorney, Lira, were authorized signatories on this trust account, which means they could sign to take money out of it. And this guy who was sort of this Cayman, who's the head of the accounting at the firm, was also authorized to have wire transfers come out of this account and had online access to the account. That's not surprising to have that access, but what they're alleged to have done with it is a big problem. So you can see the next paragraph says they have other bank accounts, they have separate checking accounts to pay their payroll, pay their operations expenses, and you are supposed to have those, right? The money that the lawyer earns in the fees is supposed to go into those first, then you can spend it on your employees, but only after you have done this segregation where you keep the client funds separate from the fees that you're earning as much as you can after the settlement's happened. And this talks about the rules of professional responsibility, which are these rules that govern lawyers and tell us what we can and can't do. The reason this is in Illinois is that there was this case out there that was filed, you can see in Chicago, from this airplane crash in Indonesia, and everybody in the crash dies. The relatives of these people who died in this horrible plane crash are the ones who are suing. There's a kind of claim called wrongful death, and so if one of your relatives has died, someone has caused that death wrongfully through negligence or whatever, you could sue for things like loss of consortium is what they call it, which is just the loss of sort of the emotional, the time you get spending with that person, the love you have for them, all this, the pain, the emotional distress, loss of earnings. Like say it's a wife who loses her husband, she's a stay-at-home mom. Now what does she do? So she's really been damaged, and so they will let you do a wrongful death claim. Girardi represents them in this lawsuit, along with another law firm that they're labeling Law Firm A here. I actually know a pretty good idea who that law firm is, but I'm not naming them because I don't know if they want to be named or not. But at least the news stories on this suggest that lawyer and law firm maybe have been actually part of why this was uncovered when they figured out, hey, what happened to the client money, and started looking around. So I don't want to toss them in here if they aren't accused of anything, and I don't think they are from my knowledge. Maybe the opposite, that they might have helped out. So you can see that this says that the Girardi and Keese lawyer A that we saw above, who was sort of anonymous, as well as this other lawyer who's named Lira, went to mediation. What is a mediation? So when you have a lawsuit, a mediation is kind of an effort to try to settle it. Usually you'll have someone who's a lawyer. A lot of times they're former judges, because those judges are good at kind of giving you like, hey, here's what's going to happen if you go to trial. The mediator is someone, he can't make you settle, but they try to shuttle back and forth between rooms. So I did one of these a few months ago. We're sitting in one room, the other people in the other room, and this mediator is coming back and forth either physically or via Zoom now, a lot of them, and basically trying to drag everyone to the middle. There's lots of methods they use to do that. It's its own little thing to do it, but they apparently managed to settle at this mediation for, it says, a total of $11 million, which looks like it would have been through 4 of these victims A, B, C, and D. You can see above it says that there's a victim A through E, which means there's somebody else who maybe didn't settle. But so you got 4 people, they got $11 million total from this airplane crash. The court issues orders approving the settlement agreements. It requires in the order that Girardi Keese has to give them the money as soon as practicable. That's not surprising. That's something that you would always expect, that the lawyer's going to go give the settlement money to the person and not just sort of hold on to it. But then we see what actually happens. So they've got another mediation now for this 5th victim, victim E. Again, they're just not naming these people, not surprising. and he settled separately on his own for 1.55 million. So there's all these settlement agreements that are the money is going into Girardi Keese's IOLTA account. You can see these A, B, C, D, E. So the amounts they got range, the total amounts range from 2.5 million to 1.3 million. The column on the right shows the amount that was due to the client victim. And so what this is saying is, some of this money goes to the lawyers because they're the lawyers, and so there's a percentage of that money that is allocated to the attorney's fees. Actually, it says they're separately wired by the counsel for Boeing, who is the airplane company, to the lender. We were talking earlier about the litigation financing company. They basically have sort of first go at your money under agreements with the law firm. And so what it looks like here is that Girardi Keese as a law firm had an agreement with this litigation financing company to basically, okay, this money is supposed to go to you, but no, because you owe us all this money, the defendant has to just give it to us straight up. So the attorney's fees, and it says Girardi Keese was not entitled to retain any attorney's fees from those settlements. So I think actually what's going on here is that the difference in those amounts due is probably costs. I'm not sure if I don't recall if this says that below. So costs is different from attorney's fees. Costs is, it could be stuff that you just have to pay over the course of the lawsuit. It's not a fee from the attorney. It's something like if you print out a bunch of pages, that's a cost. If you hire an expert witness, that's a cost. If you pay the mediator, which you always would be paying the mediator something, that's a cost. It's stuff that is part of the expense of doing a lawsuit but doesn't go to the lawyer. Okay, yeah, that is actually what happened. So that's my instinct is right sometimes. And so there's part of this in the trust account that is supposed to go to these costs, and that would go to the law firm, and you're supposed to get that out kind of right away. Go once you've earned it, go take it out of the trust account, put it to reimburse the law firm for the costs that it spent, and the law firm would have fronted those as part of the lawsuit. And then you're supposed to take all the money and give it to the clients. As the court order said, do it as soon as practicable, which means just as soon as you can kind of practically do it. That is not what happened. So not what's alleged to have happened. What is alleged to have happened is that a lot of this money basically started getting stolen by people at Girardi and Keese, including Girardi and these other two people, Cayman and Lyra. So you can see here that it says that they basically had a scheme to start. So you can kind of think of it this way: they just settled these big cases. They got 12.5 million. Normally, if you're getting a third of that, you're going to get what, $3 or $4 million. All that money goes to this lender from the litigation financing company. So they have this big payday, and they're like not getting any of it because they borrowed previously, and now they've got to pay back what they borrowed previously. They don't like that, I guess, and decided we're just going to start taking money that isn't ours. You can see the expenses that it said they started diverting this money off to, and this is client money. Like the client has signed a settlement, said my relative is dead in a plane crash. I have just gone to a mediation and agreed to this settlement, and the money is legally mine now. A court has ordered it. What did Girardi Keese start doing with it? This says that Girardi Keese started paying their own business expenses from the settlement money. They funded their payroll, which is like the employee, the salaries for the employees there. They paid American Express card bills, and that's where some of the Erika Jayne stuff comes in. Is in not just this case, but a lot of other ones where they just kind of paying off credit cards that were not even being used for the firm, but were being used to fund hairdressers and a giant team of people and Broadway shows and other stuff. That's what people are saying about that. And funding settlements for other Girardi Keese clients is the fourth one. Because one of the problems that happens when you're doing something like this for 20, 25 years is that it's kind of a Ponzi scheme. You have to start robbing Peter to pay Paul. If you haven't paid this other guy from an earlier settlement where you stole his money and he starts making noise, well then now you have this fund. You kind of have to get rid of the guy earlier who is a problem, pay him off, and then start. Hopefully you kick the can down the road, and they're just kind of hoping either I get really old and die, which Girardi came pretty close. I mean, he's 83 now. He might have literally gotten away with this forever if it hadn't come out when it did. And then it says they basically start lying to the clients, which is what the allegations have been in a lot of these. Is that Girardi would go kind of pretend like he's their best friend. Oh, I'm just this old man, and I'm very nice, and I'm fighting for you, and but for all these reasons, I can't give you the money. In some of the other cases, and this may be the stuff sealed in the California indictment, maybe why it's sealed, is that there have been accusations in newspaper articles, very, very serious accusations that retired judges have helped in this. One of those judges is dead, just another old age thing, but that basically 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and for a long period of time, that they were using these judges who were mediators and were getting retired judges who were friends of Girardi and kind of being kicked back money from Girardi to go and like write fake documents that they could show the client that would say, oh, you can't get it yet. Oh, there's an issue. It's going to take another 6 months. And that's kind of what they say is happening here. They say that they start writing checks. They start labeling these things as things for the business account, for expenses. They start making false statements, and so there's wire fraud stuff here. Wire fraud just means you send a false statement over. They call it the wires. It could be email, it could be a phone call, whatever. This says that they basically start when people start asking, because your client, you've just gone to this mediation. You're like, hey, I just got $1 million, $2 million. You're going to wonder, where is that money at some point if it just doesn't come to you. And they just start telling him, oh, because of COVID, I can't give you the money. The banks won't process stuff. That wasn't true. They start writing emails and saying, one of the clients, I guess, was asking for a loan of $40,000 as an advance on the settlement. Which maybe if you're the client, you're going, well, if the attorney's telling me that I can't get my money yet, and so maybe I can just get an advance on it. So they gave him a quote advance when really he should have just got all his money, or him or her. I didn't say which. And then Girardi, this says, starts emailing letters to one of the victims that are falsely claiming, oh, Boeing doesn't want us to give you the money. Boeing has only authorized in the terms of this to give half, or we can only give a portion of this. And so then he says to another letter, or a victim, the same kind of letter, like, I can give you half the settlement. And what's happening to the other half, American Express bills, stuff he's not supposed to be spending it on, because it's not his money. He's holding it in a position of trust for the clients, and that trust is being violated here. And then you can see Girardi is kind of schmoozing with them a little. Oh, I think you're going to love me in 30 days, and trying to just, again, kick the can down the road. Girardi's sending him letters saying, oh, there's been serious issues. I've been back east 4 times, just 2 more weeks. And these are the allegations that are happening throughout for kind of all his cases, that this is just sort of a pattern of what he did over most of his legal career, would get this money. And some of these are actually really, this case is pretty bad. There's others where people, if you start thinking about it, you're an injury lawyer, right? You're doing people who have had very serious injuries, sometimes brain injuries. And there's footage of some of the people that are alleged to be victims of this that are pretty bad, where you can tell how he's kind of taking advantage not only of the client, but of the injury that he was supposed to be helping them on. So if they have a brain injury that has damaged sort of their cognitive abilities and their ability to even deal with this stuff, he's coming in pretending I'm the hero, but he's looking at that person going, you're prey. You are someone weak that I can take advantage of. And so, some of that is very, very bad. All this stuff is not stuff that really should not be happening. There's a whole drama. You kind of see this is towards the end of this. Basically, they're laying out essentially that he sent stuff over the emails and mail communications, so it's mail and wire fraud. But the reason this has been such a big drama, it's not just Erika Jayne. There's bankruptcies going on and lawsuits. I might do a video about those later. They're interesting in their own right about what has been happening, and she's been making a lot of public statements about I wasn't involved and I've been cleared by the trustee, which I'm not sure are correct, but that's a topic for another video. Girardi's drama has been really big for the bar because he's not the only guy that has had this happen. There's been a lot of other lawyers it's starting to come out, have done stuff like this and had never really been policed properly. And not just California, but there's a whole drama up in South Carolina, this Murdaugh case, which is about kind of a family who ran this county as lawyers and prosecutors for a number of years and were stealing money from their clients and killing people. And so that's another video. But then there's a lot of lawyers, and I even saw some recently, without revealing too much details, was told about another you know, 3 or 4 lawyers who had supposedly been disbarred, and the circumstances, that's kind of like this crazy. They can't all have been disbarred for client funds. And then you start looking and going, you know, a lot of lawyers had been disbarred for this. There's just uh, it's something that I think needs to be taken more seriously, because this shouldn't be happening. Stuff like this, when you're taking that money out and lying to people about their settlement, is I think should be prioritized more in terms of doing something about it. Will something happen here because of his age, because of the alleged dementia? I don't know, but it is for sure something that I'm sure will fuel more Housewives episodes to come, and we will get to the truth of it, I think, because there are so many lawsuits. The trustee in the bankruptcy, which is someone whose their job is to sort of get money for people who are injured, will be digging into everything, and I think over the months to come, we're going to see a lot more of the details coming out about all this stuff. So that's this indictment. That's what we've learned from it. This case is ongoing, and I think will be ongoing for many years. If you like hearing about all this legal minutia and details, then I've got many, many more of these for you that I'll be making. And I love the minutia, so hit subscribe if you want to hear more, or hear more drama, or sort of get more understanding about how it works. And that's it for today.